Aloha, everyone. This is Chesapeake Movie Thoughts. And the other day was my birthday. Um, so happy birthday to me, I guess. But for my birthday, I decided to celebrate it with a sort of movie triple feature at home. Went out and I rented three movies, and I brought them back and watched them here. And I thought I'd use this video here to talk about them and tell you what I thought about them. The first one was the Lego Ninjago movie. First one I rented and first one I watched, the Lego Ninjago movie. This is from the creators of the Lego movie and the Lego Batman movie, which were very successful. If you saw those movies, you know what kind of humor and what kind of writing to expect from the Lego Ninjago movie. It's the same kind of thing. I think that those other two, the Lego movie and the Lego Batman movie, had maybe a little something extra that the Lego Ninjago movie is lacking. The Lego Ninjago movie is all one franchise. There's no crossover to it. There's no these characters from other franchises don't pop in there, and that was part of the fun of the Lego movie and the Lego Batman movie. But characterizations and everything. I mean, the idea behind these Lego movies, or at least the previous two, had been that, or at least it was heavily implied that the what we were seeing was happening in the imagination of a child who was playing with Legos. So all of the characters, like all the adults, were written not to act like adults act, but the way a child might perceive adults to act. Um, like Batman in the Lego Batman movie was a prime example of that. He acted very childish, but he had adult responsibilities of being a hero, or at least the way a child would perceive those responsibilities. Um, and the Lego Ninjago movie has a very similar character in the main villain. He's very has kind of very similar character traits to Batman in the Lego Batman movie, but he's just chosen to be the villain rather than be the hero. This is a character called Gormadon, who is a warlord. He attacks the city so regularly that they forecast it like they're forecasting the weather on the news. But he is opposed by a team of ninjas who are pretty much ninja in name only, because they really don't know anything about stealth at all. They pilot giant mechs. Because, of course, you think ninjas, you think in the shadows, nearly invisible, oh, and also giant mechs. So they're really more like Power Rangers than ninjas. But the leader of this team of ninjas happens to be Gormadon's son. And the movie is about the strained relationship between the father and the son, and how that kind of starts to mend. So it gets into some heartwarming stuff. This one is not being presented as though it's the imagination of a child, though, technically speaking, although it's written that way, but it's presented as though there's a live action sequence right at the beginning of the movie that sets up that this is a story being told to a child by Jackie Chan. So the writing style is the same as those others, so it's like it's being imagined by a kid, but we know it's not. So it doesn't quite work as well in this movie as in the other Lego movies. But it's still a lot of fun. It's just it's probably the weakest of those three theatrically released Lego movies in that regard, because it's just missing a little bit of something that the other had. But if you liked the Lego movie and you liked the Lego Batman movie, you'll probably like this one too. The second movie I watched was called Upgrade. You may have heard of this one. It was an action film. It was an R-rated action film. I found it. Some of the action sequences got kind of gory, but very interesting action sequences. Though it has an interesting premise, which allows you to choreograph the action scenes in a very unique way. The idea is that it's kind of like the $6 Million Man. A man is injured and paralyzed, and he has a chip implanted in him, which gives him the ability to move his limbs again. But there's an AI in the chip that can speak to him and that can take control of his limbs. So this AI can just take control at times and he doesn't even know what the AI is doing with his body. I mean, he doesn't know it until after he sees his limbs doing it. So that's something very weird to portray, I'm sure, as an actor. On his face, you see that he has no idea what he's doing as he's doing it, because the computer's controlling all of his movements. And that also means that the movements are all very precise, very technical, very computer controlled, very technical, and that makes for some interesting action scenes. I thought the movie has a twist to it, which there most of that twist I kind of called, I saw coming. Towards the end, it ended up being kind of a twist within the twist, which I didn't see coming, but I also didn't like what they did with that. It led to a rather unsatisfying ending for me. I mean, it made it so I couldn't see it coming, but the reason I didn't predict it is because I didn't think it would be a very satisfying ending, and it wasn't. But I am glad I watched it. It was a unique kind of action film. It did have certain similarities to what I've seen in the Venom trailer. Of course, Venom is not out yet, so we'll see that in October. So we'll see if it has some similarities there. But in the Venom trailer, we see where a guy gets bonded with an alien rather than a computer that is able to do things. Now it's with the symbiote tendrils rather than moving his, but it's able to do things with his body that he's not fully in control of. So I wonder if this may be one of those phenomena where a very similar movie premise ends up coming out within a few months of each other. 2 or 3 movies within a few months of each other have a very similar premise. That does happen. That tend to happen a lot, and that may be what's happening here. But we will see when we see the Venom movie. The last movie I saw was Paul the Apostle of Christ. I found this movie was kind of slow at the beginning, but by the end, it got pretty engrossing, and my eyes were kind of glued to the screen towards the end there. So I ended up really enjoying it. But you do have to have patience with it. It does take a while to get there. It's kind of meanders at the beginning, like it's kind of like unfocused. Like it's really not clear what story it wants to tell. Does it want to tell the story of Paul's life, how he got in prison through flashbacks? Did it want to tell the story of Luke chronicling that life and what he's going through? Did it want to tell the story of the Christians being persecuted in Rome at that time? It kind of is unfocused between those kind of storylines, and it doesn't really make it clear what's the main story. But they kind of coalesce towards the end and becomes very interesting. I did like the acting in it a lot. Paul really kind of sells you as this person who is filled with regret about some of the things that he's done in his life, but he has come to terms with it, and he's found peace, and he's found grace, he's found forgiveness, and he is able to sell that very well. And all the Christians that are trying to decide, whether to stay in Rome and try to help those who are oppressed in Rome, or whether to save themselves, flee Rome, and at least live to spread Christ's message another day, whereas it's looking more likely that they won't survive if they stay at Rome. So they don't know the right thing to do, and I suppose that this kind of meandering thing, this kind of lack of focus at the beginning, kind of mirrors. I don't think it was intentional, like it was accidental, but it does kind of mirror what the characters are going through, because there is a lot of indecision as far as these characters go. They don't know what to do. They don't know what direction they need to go in, and it kind of coalesces at the end. So the experience of watching the film, in some small ways, kind of parallels what the characters are going through, which might be kind of smart filmmaking, but again, I think that was more or less accidental. But I am glad I watched it. None of these movies were top of my list to see. They were movies that I did want to eventually get around to seeing, but they weren't top of my list to see, which is why I didn't go out to theaters to see them, which is why I ended up renting them. but I did get something really enjoyable out of all three of them. So I can pretty much recommend all three, not too highly. I mean, if you have to skip these movies, you can. But if you're looking for something enjoyable, you'll find something enjoyable, I think, in all three of these. Anyway, that's what I had to say about my birthday movie triple feature. So if you've seen these movies, please comment in the comments below, because that's where comments go. And let me know what you thought of them. Like, comment, subscribe, and that's a wrap.